Hello, my name's Dr. Jeanette Raymond. I'm a psychologist, psychotherapist, and relationship expert. Here to talk to you today about the difference between grief and mourning. A lot of people confuse it, and there are some overlaps, but I thought it would be important to distinguish them so that you know when you're grieving and you know when you're mourning, which is a longer term process. So let's start with grief. Grief is an intense experience of the present. You're feeling it in every bone of your body. You're feeling something ripped away from you, something torn, something you didn't want to happen. Even though you may have known it was happening in the case of a terminal illness, or a surprise in the case of someone having a car accident, or they passed away in their sleep and you didn't know they were going to die. But part of you has been ripped away and torn, and you go through this intense cycle of feelings from anger and rage, like, how could this happen to you? It's not about the other person, it's what's happening to you. How could this happen to you? How could you not have known? Why didn't you do this? If only. There's so many if only I'd done this, if only I'd called the person, if only I'd taken them seriously. Because it could have been a suicide and you didn't do anything. And basically, you're going from anger to exhaustion to a kind of numbness. You may not feel like eating. Your sleeping routines will be disturbed. You don't know whether it's night or day. Time seems to stand still. You don't know what day is it. You don't know if it's breakfast time or lunchtime. You don't know if you've had a bowel movement today or 10 days ago. You don't know who's coming through the door. You don't know whether there's food in the house. Everything's a jumble, and that's very normal in a state of grief, which is also kind of a shock. Even if you didn't know it was going to happen, it's still going to affect you that way because you didn't want it to happen. You may have nightmares because it's your psyche's way of processing this terrible, terrible experience of having something taken away, an important relationship, somebody that meant something to you, someone that you had built something with in your life, someone you had grown up with, something that you used in your life as a marker that was always there. It has a meaning and purpose, and to have it suddenly ripped away, or even if you knew it was coming, it's still something you did not want. It eats away at you. Now, some people cry a lot when they're in a state of grief, and other people don't, because it depends where in the grieving process you're feeling numb. And a lot of people have told me, she was just told that her son died in a car accident. She didn't even cry. They think that that person doesn't care. They're not grieving. Yes, they are. But they're in a different order of things. They go into the numb place first. They go into the shock place first to protect them. Otherwise, they would not survive. Other people break down and crumble and have to pick themselves up and put themselves together again with help and support and encouragement and nurturing. So grieving can come in many different shapes, and it's not always in the same order. So even if you're numb in the beginning, you might get so depressed after 2 or 3 weeks that you take to your bed and you become very depressed and you withdraw from the world and you cry all the time. And people don't understand because everybody else cried at the beginning and now they've all gone back to their regular lives. Why are you behaving differently? So may not understand your process of grief, but it is unique and it is yours. Other ways in which you're experiencing grief can be associated with how clingy you are. So some people who are grieving are terrified of being alone. They want somebody to be with them in the house all the time. They want somebody to sleep in the same room or at least live with them while they're going through the grieving process. Other people want to be completely alone. They just want to stay with the person who they lost, with their belongings if they can. They want to stay in their room and smell the person's clothes and their perfume and their shoes and touch them and hold them and go to bed with them. And other people want to get rid of everything as soon as they can because they can't tolerate the experience of loss. They don't want to be reminded of it. So they want to get rid of it, as if by doing that, they can deny the death of that person. So it's just their form of grief. They're not being callous, they're not being heartless, and it doesn't mean they don't care. So those are all the different ways in which you might be feeling grief. Disorientation, destabilizing, the world standing still, time meaning nothing. You're not really concentrating. You can't take in what people are telling you. You're moving at a different pace. That's all the instantaneous, could be 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 months, whatever it is, of grief. Now, mourning is a very different experience. Mourning is about the end of grief, the acceptance part. When you have accepted that somebody in your life has left you, and they are no longer here in their physical form, but they are inside you because they're always there with you. You're always talking to them, you're always having an argument with them, you're always showing them something. And that happened when they were alive and you weren't together, and it happens when they're not alive and there, because they live inside you forever. They become a part of your internal world, of all the people that are important to you and that you continue to have a relationship with. So mourning is a long-term, lifelong process where you come to terms with the loss, the grieving part of the physical person. And it starts an acceptance. But the important thing about mourning is you honor the relationship and whatever it meant to you. You don't stay angry and resentful. You don't say, well, now I'm going to protect everything around me because they might go too. That means you haven't come to acceptance. It really means whoever the person was that you lost, you think about them as human. There were parts of them that you liked a lot, and there were parts of them that irritated you and you didn't like. And that is the mourning process. When you see the whole person in good bits, bad bits, ugly bits, beautiful bits, kind bits, mean bits, because that's what we're all made up of. And that's what gives them texture. That's what gives them depth in your life. If you never think of them, then there's nothing to mourn because it's as if they weren't in your life. So it's important that you remember them in all their myriad of ways. Times when they annoyed the hell out of you, and times when they made you laugh till you cried. Times when they were comforting, and times when they were cruel and callous. That's what mourning is. And mourning comes when you're reminded of that person through some other kind of loss. Maybe you've lost a job, you lost your home, you lost a relationship because somebody moved away to another place, you lost a pet, you lost a book, you broke a vase that meant something to you. They're all losses. And those experiences bring up the original person that you are mourning the loss of. It kind of comes up again, but this time the wound that was bleeding during the grieving process, now it's healed up. Not completely, there's scar tissue there, and there's a scab, and there'll always be a mark there, but it won't keep bleeding every time you look at it or touch it. You'll feel it, but it'll be at a level that you can tolerate, and that's what mourning is about. It's about tolerating a loss, because the person may be gone, but they live inside you forever. You continue to have a relationship with them. You can wish that they were here to talk to, but you can talk to them from the inside. You can tolerate being with their books, their clothes, their artifacts, their comic books, their records, their CDs, whatever it is that, made them them. Whereas earlier on in the process, in the grieving process, you might have not been able to have anything to do with them. You just wanted to get rid of them out of the way, or you were clinging to them. And during the mourning process, you won't need to be either clinging or throwing things out. You can go in the room. You can remember an object. You can bring back good memories, sad memories, funny memories. They're all healthy. And in your dreams, you will be able to continue a relationship with this person. You will dream about them. That's normal in the mourning process. The dreams will be informing you of your relationship. Do you have any regrets? Do you wish things had worked out differently? What would you like to have done? How could you use that experience to make the most of the people you're with now so that you don't have regrets or the fewest regrets? How can you make sure that the relationship is as nurturing and as kind and generous as you want it to be, but also honoring the times when you don't feel that way, when you don't feel kind and generous, when you feel withholding, when you feel resentful, when you feel wounded. They're all part of the experience. And in the mourning process, you learn to appreciate that things come and go, but it still remains part of you. It is your past. So it's a piece of your history, and that's why it's important. So I hope that this video has given you a good enough distinction between grief and mourning, and that it'll give you food for thought. And if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments section. And I look forward to joining you again soon, talking to you about different kinds of mourning for different kinds of things. But bye for now.